Okay. So I just want to finish a couple points from Vayera and then go on to Bo. In Parshas Vayera. So you start out with the Makos, and I think the last thing we had spoken about. I think the last thing we spoke about was that the Makos came in a like a military campaign. We spoke about that. That the Makos came in as a ability. Okay. So now there are a couple of points I want to get up to over here. First of all, if you take a look at Perek Ches Pasuk Beis. One point that I did not mention, one point that I forgot to mention. Where is this over here? Okay. First of all, Zion. Page 324. So it says, Moshe ben Shmonim Shana, on page 324. Moshe was 80 years old. Aaron ben Shalosh Shmonim Shana b'dabram el Paro. Moshe was 80 and Paro was 83. And Aaron was 83 when they spoke to Paro. So one of the ideas here is, and this is really a fundamental that is often overlooked. Hi, please close the door over there. One of the fundamental that's often overlooked is that Moshe Rabbeinu did not know he was going to be the Redeemer of the Jewish people. When did he find out? When he was 80 years old. I mean, Moshe lived his entire life as a person who was working on himself, and a person who did a lot of self-introspection and studied Torah, whatever Torah was before those days, before Torah was actually given. But Moshe Rabbeinu did not know that he was going to be the Redeemer of the Jewish people. When did he find out? When he was 80 years old. He went to the burning bush, and at the burning bush, HaKadosh Baruch Hu communicated with him and said, "You're going to be taking out the Jewish people." So the Chassam Sofer says that we see from here, and we have this repeated in Jewish history. This happens in other places in Jewish history. Where else do we see this? I can think of two other places where this happens. One of them is by King Shaul. Shaul HaMelech had no idea. He was the first king. He had no idea that he was going to be the king. Shaul didn't know he was going to be the king. He was going on a search mission for donkeys. Shaul's father had lost his donkeys. And then Shaul went to look for the donkeys. And he got to a certain town, and he said, he went to Shmuel HaNavi. He went to Shmuel HaNavi, the prophet, to find out where the donkeys were. And when he got to the prophet, Shmuel said, "Forget about the donkeys have been found. You are the king." And he anointed him as king. He didn't know he was going to be the king. He had no idea he was going to be the king. One day he was anointed as king. Then we find it again. When Shmuel HaNavi himself is taken away from Shaul, and Hashem says to Shmuel HaNavi, "I want you to go. There's a man named Yishai who has a son." And Shmuel HaNavi goes to Yishai's place, and he meets the first son as Eliav. And Eliav was a very impressive individual. And Shmuel is ready to anoint him. And God says to Shmuel, "He's not the one." And he goes through all 7 sons. And they're all very impressive. He says, "That's not the ones." So who is it? It's the last one, the 8th one, the shepherd. And David HaMelech didn't know he was going to be the king. And he anoints David HaMelech as the king. Says the Chassam Sofer, same thing with Mashiach. Same thing with Mashiach. In every generation, Mashiach is here. In every generation, somebody has got the potential to be Mashiach. He doesn't know it. And if he isn't anointed as Mashiach, if he doesn't get the communication from Hashem that he's the Mashiach, so that means the generation messed up. But there's somebody who, in other words, that we think that, it's unfortunate that we get this way. When it comes to Mashiach, we think of, let's face it, we've been tainted by Hollywood. And we think, some young charismatic guy is going to come running in, dun, 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 I'm the Mashiach. It's going to be really neat, and then he's going to beat up the goyim. That's not. It's going to be much more along the lines of somebody like Reb Chaim Kanievsky, who one day gets a communication. So my daughter asked me on Shabbos, and how do we know we could believe him? Why don't we believe other people nowadays who say they're Mashiach? Why don't we believe other days? Why there are other people who have claimed to be Mashiach? I've met a few. Right? How come we don't believe them? Why don't we believe them? How come we will believe the Mashiach when the Mashiach comes? The answer is the Jewish people believed Moshe Rabbeinu when Moshe Rabbeinu came. In other words, sometimes, it says by Shimshon, Samson, so he had long hair, and this Plishti, the wife, Delilah, she was trying to find out the secret of his strength. And the first couple of times he told her something, and it turned out it wasn't true. Then the third time he says, if you cut my hair, my strength will be gone. If my hair is cut, then my strength will go. And it says that she knew he was telling the truth. So the Gemara says, how'd she know? How'd she know? The answer is Nikarin Divrei HaEmes. You can tell when somebody's telling the truth. When somebody's telling the truth, you can tell. That means when the real Mashiach comes and he says, listen, I had a nevuah, I had a prophecy, and I was appointed to be the Mashiach. And by the way, it's probably there's going to be a certain amount of circumstantial indication as well. The guy who comes along and he claims he's the Mashiach, yet he smells mysteriously like vodka. Right? Somehow we're going to be skeptical. When a guy came to Reb Chaim Kanievsky and he said he's the Mashiach. You know the story? A guy came to Reb Chaim Kanievsky and said he's the Mashiach, but nobody's going to believe him, so he wants Reb Chaim to publicize it. So Reb Chaim said to the guy, well, the Gemara says the Mashiach is going to come on a donkey that has 100 colors. Do you have the donkey? So the guy goes, no. He goes, okay, get a hold of the donkey, then come back, we'll see what we do next. That's what Rabbi said. Instead of arguing with the guy, so he said, okay, let's say it's true. Go find the donkey. We haven't heard back from the guy since. We still haven't heard from the guy. You're still looking for the donkey. There's another guy came to Steinman. So that's all he said, he's Eliyahu Hanavi. So Steinman, who at the time was about 95, says, really? He says, I've been waiting about 90 years to meet you. This guy says, yeah? He says, yeah, when I was in Cheder, the first Gemara they taught us was an Elam Etzias. The Gemara says, if you have a kav, you have a certain amount of grain that's scattered over a certain area, right? And the Gemara goes into how much grain that constitutes that it's lost or that you can keep it. And the Gemara finishes with Teiko. The Gemara, it's unresolved. And we know Teiko means that we have to wait for Eliyahu Hanavi to tell us what the halacha is. I've been waiting 90 years for you. What is the halacha in Kav V'Dalet Amos? Right. The guy says, I think I gotta go. I gotta go. Great. And never saw him again. So how are we going to know when the real one is here? We'll know. We'll know. We'll know because we'll know. So the Chassam Sofer says that he's here. He's here. The Mashiach could be here. It's not me, guys. It's not me, just in case you start rumoring. It can't be me. It can't be me. Why? I'm a Kohen. I could be Eliyahu Hanavi because he was a Kohen. but I can't. Don't ask me no halachic questions though. But I can't be Mashiach, right? He's telling you. He's like, because I got all these ideas of how it's going to happen, whether that sort of thing. Okay. Then you get to the makos. You get to the plagues, and you got dam. It starts with the blood, and the blood. I saw a picture recently of the Nile. Yeah, I saw the Nile River. How wide was the Nile? The Nile is a wide river. I was always picturing the Nile, this little thin stream, it's like the Mississippi. It's like one of these massive rivers over there, the Nile, and it runs across the country. The whole thing turns to blood. You stop and think about it. Whereas I was like, as a little kid, when I learned it the first time, I'm picturing a big puddle that turned to blood. That's how they have the pictures in the children's books. The children's books always mess us up. Right? The pictures in the children's book. The Nile is this massive thing. It's turned to blood. And then it says that all of the fish, if you take a look, it says on page 326, bottom of page 326. Vehadoga asher by Yaor Mesa, the fish in the Yaor died. Vayivash ha-Yaor, it became putrefied. Is that how Art Scroll translates it? It became foul. So there are two things. Rabbi Victor Miller points out. First of all, the fish died. Fish can't live in blood. Now, why did the fish have to die? Why did the fish have to die? Because how do you know that it's not? It could be food coloring in the river. Fish could live in water that's got food coloring in it, right? This is probably if it would be a river that was colored, There's only one other time in history that we know of a river getting colored. You don't know what it is? None of you know what it is? What? Correct. When the Cubs won the World Series in 2017, they dyed the Chicago River blue. How do you like that for depth and for meaning in life, right? They dyed the whole river blue. It was the single biggest of the parade. There are 5 million people. It was the biggest human gathering in history, excluding religious gatherings. Wow. How do you like that? And then that's not 100% accurate because this was a religious gathering. This was called Cubs Nation, right? So they dyed the Chicago River blue. Okay, now if the river was dyed red, so the fish would live, how do you prove that it's real blood? Because if it's dyed red, Parra come along and say, hey, another magic trick over here. No, I told you blood. I told you blood, I meant blood. What's the proof the fish die? And Rabbi Victor Miller says something, and I never thought of this, something so simple, I never thought of it. That means that, and then when the river turned back to life, when the river was eventually turned back after a week of plague, but they still have no fish in England, in Egypt. There are no fish. They were living, it was a fish society. Doesn't Japan nowadays live on fish? Are there a lot of fish in Japan, right? As evidenced by sushi. There's what do you call it? The sushi comes from Japan, doesn't it? It's a Japanese food, right? They live on fish. It's a fish society. Right? There are no fish in Egypt. They had to reseed everything, and they had to reseed the river with fish and so on and so forth. They were missing species of fish. They had massive amounts of fish. It's a remarkable, what? No herring. No. In Goshen was where the Jews were. I'm sure they had herring. In herring, I'm sure the Goshen fish, I'm sure the herring stayed where the Jews were, there was herring. Right? Otherwise, there goes the religion. What? They didn't have a kiddush on Shabbos? I don't know about you guys. I can't stand this stuff. I don't know about I can't. Terrible. Oh yeah, Dave, you like it, right? Yeah, I bet you do. Yeah, I'll bet you. Yeah, you're a thumbs up on herring. You eat the stuff, you smell like herring all day. Herring with onions, and you got to have crackers, right? It's got to be with crackers. Oh, I got halacha with crackers. Herring with crackers. I got family members who eat it like sunflower seeds. They just go. Ugh.
I'm the one that buys everything for Kiddush and Child Shudas for the shul.
I
forgot the crackers.
Ooh. There you go. Well, you got corporal punishment for that. You could talk in shul, and you could, you could yell at the gabbai, you could do whatever. But don't forget the crackers or the herring. You could lose your job. The fire the rabbi in a shul. What's going on over here? Okay, so the fish die, and the whole place putrefies. So the fish have to die in order to prove that it's blood. Okay, then come the frogs. Now, if you take a look on page 328, Lior, you can maybe kill the air. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, 328. Bo al Paro v'amarta of Korma Hashem shalaches ami v'yavduni. Send out my people; they will serve me. V'im mo'ein atol shaleach. If you refuse to send them, hine anochi nogef es kogol gevulcha batzvardim. I am going to send in the frogs. Now here you have a very interesting, what do you call it? Over here, the Torah then describes the frogs coming, and it says, where is it? Pasuk Beis, 5 lines from the bottom. Vayet Aaron es yodo al meimei Mitzrayim. Aaron stretches out his hands on the waters of Egypt. Vatal hatzvardeya. The frog comes up. Vatechas eretz Mitzrayim. The frog comes up, and it what do you call it? It covers all of Egypt. Now, you want to hear? I'm going to tell you something wild now. I'll tell you something wild. First of all, why does it say it in the singular? Hatzvardeya. So Rashi brings down two perushim here. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says on the left column, 4 lines from the bottom. See where that is? Left column. Vatal hatzvardeya. Says Rashi, tzvardeya achas hay. So it was one frog. V'hayumakin osa. They hit it. V'himatezes nechilin. It sprayed out other frogs. Zel midrasho. That's the medrash. Upshuto. Skip down 1 line. And the plain meaning is yesh lomar shirutz asvardim kore lashon yechidis. That sometimes you say, like many a frog. The frog. It's like a guy. Sometimes you talk about, I'm just trying to make a buck. Yes, a guy who's working. I'm just trying to make a buck. It doesn't mean a buck. He means he's trying to make money. So Hatzfardeya means this species of frog came to Mitzrayim. Okay, now let's go to that medrash. The Chazal say that it was one frog. It's actually a machlokas in the Gemara. Rabbi Akiva says it was one frog, and they hit the frog, and more frogs sprayed out. And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says to Rabbi Akiva, no, it wasn't one frog. They didn't hit the frog. It was one frog, and he whistled or called out, and all the other frogs joined. That's a machlokas. Now, first of all, what this Tzfardeya was, there are Rishonim who say that this Tzfardeya was actually crocodiles, which would be bad, right? It would be crocodiles. So some guy was arguing with me on Shabbos. We got into an argument about crocodiles and alligators, right? First of all, crocodiles are much more dangerous than alligators, number one. They're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger. And if I'm not mistaken, I was under the impression an alligator is a jaw structure like a human being. That they only move the bottom part. The top part is connected to the rest of the head, whereas crocodiles are not. Is that correct? Yes, because I once read that these guys who wrestle with alligators, then you can hold the alligator's snout closed under 30 pounds of pressure. And it's not a big deal. All you got to do is get your hand in and hold the snout closed, and you can hold it closed. And it looks like it's a lot tougher. If I told you, if you had an alligator, I'd show you right now. It's just not a big deal, right? You just got to get your hand into the snout, right, and close it. Now, I'm under the impression the alligators are the ones, but they're definitely, whatever the case is, they're definitely not as tough as crocodiles. Crocodiles are essentially big lizards. They're quick, they're strong, they're fast up. Now, there is an opinion that this was crocodiles. There's some of the Rishonim say, but we understand it as frogs. And the frogs get into everything, and the frogs got into their stomachs, and it got into the ovens, and it got into the refrigerator. It got everywhere. Everywhere you looked, there was a frog. They were croaking inside. The noise was driving them crazy. I knew a kid. He was a bit of a nut. So on the Seder night with his family, right, when people do all sorts of things at the Seder to enliven things. So when they got to the 10 Makos, he actually had a live frog in a cage, which nobody saw. And when they got to the Dam, and everybody throws up colored water or something, Tzfardeya, and he actually released a live frog jumping around the room where the women were screaming, the men were laughing. And then he said, well, and this is only one of them. This is only one frog. And I imagine what was going on, where everywhere you go, you sit down, you step on it, and you switch it. We can't even imagine. We can't even imagine what it was like. But the Stipler takes us in a different direction. The Stipler goes back to that medrash. Everybody's got their favorite. Everybody's got which one of the Makos was like the scariest one. I mean, to me, the wild animals is clearly the scariest one. The fourth one. Denver, where you got some say locust. We'll get locust in the next week's Parsha. We'll get to the locust in Parshas Bo. But some say the wild animals. For your average mother would tell you kinim, the third one, lice, right? Because in warm countries, listen, you'll see in Israel, you have to when you have little children and it's hot climate, and kids are always sweaty, so they have these special lice combs. Right, and by us it was every morning. And by the way, if you send your kid to kindergarten, one kid in the kindergarten who's infested, then everybody's finished. There's one family that doesn't take care of it, then they're all finished. They're all going to come home, and you can tell because your kids are starting to scratch, right? And you can tell, okay, and they have these lice. It's a metal comb. It's a metal comb with it, and the mothers and they don't have a way to kill. They have not found a way. They can make nuclear submarines. They have not found a shampoo that kills the lice in the hair. They still, what's that? People, they got all sorts of natural, what do you call it? Yeah. You want me to put mayonnaise in your hair? Put your mayonnaise. Somebody else is going to come along with 2 slices of white bread and some lettuce. Then you're in trouble, They have not figured out a way to do it, and so the mothers dread. As soon as you get to Keenan, the mothers are, listen, lady, Keenan are not as dangerous as alligators and lions and wild animals. Yeah, but my kids made me nuts. And every morning the kids are screaming, and then you get those kids with the naturally curly hair. I'm telling you, it's Tsar Balei Chayim. The mother's like, come and the kid is screaming. So what Tzfardeya is the second one. Says the Stipler, the Medrash says, according to Rabbi Akiva, the Gemara says, it was one Tzfardeya, and they hit it. And when they hit it, more frogs sprayed out. The Stipler says, what's going on here? What's going on? What the Torah is obviously trying to teach you something. You know what the Torah is teaching you here? The Torah is teaching you the futility of anger. What happens? 2 Egyptians are walking on the street, and all of a sudden they see a frog. hey, Anwar, man, I hate frogs. Yeah, me too, Walid. And he takes a stick and he smacks it, and boom, he says, boom, more frogs sprayed out. He's like, what? Yep, and hits it again, almost like the Three Stooges, like Curly on the Three Stooges, and he hits it again. And the more you hit it and the angrier you get, the more frogs. So what happens when you get angry is you actually do things. It's like the guy who comes home and his wife did something. They got him upset, meaning it cost you money, right? Your wife did something. She got a couple of tickets. They never get one. It always comes in bunches, right, Dave? It always comes in bunches. She got a couple of parking tickets, right? So you get upset. So what do you slam a chair? So what did you broke the chair? What were you upset about? You're upset that it cost you money. And now it costs you more money. You get home, your brother forgot to leave the key by the door. So you're locked out. So you punch the door. Now you broke a finger, right? There was a Yugoslavian amateur basketball player, true story. A Yugoslavian amateur basketball player who got upset. The ref made a call. And in those days, the basket was up on a concrete pillar. And this guy got upset with the call, so he slammed his head against the pillar and he shattered his brainstem and turned himself into a vegetable. Yeah, it's true. Not only that, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, previously known as Lou Alcindor. So he was professional basketball players wear goggles now. A lot of them wear goggles. He was the first one. Why? Because when you're 7'4", they had him listed at 7'2", but he was clearly 7'4". A Jabbar. Kareem was clearly, when you're 7'4", and other guys are a mere 6'9", right? So when you're going for a rebound, their finger is where your eye is. So he once got poked in the eye. He got poked in the eye in a game, and he got so frustrated he punched the basket support, the metal basket support. He broke his hand. His eye was better the next day, and he was out for 6 weeks with a broken hand because he punched the backboard support. So when you get angry, the Stipler says, look what anger does. Look what Gemara says, a person who gets angry, you should view him as worshiping idols. It's as if he's worshiping idols. Why? Because one day you do this, the Gemara says, one day you do this, one day you do this. The way the Yetzer Hara works, he tells you to do this, next thing you know, he tells you to worship idols. You worship idols. So if a person understands, what is anger? Anger is an urge. It's an urge. And like all other urges, it has to be controlled. You have an urge to get angry. Well, don't. Control yourself. Just like you have an urge to eat treif. I have an urge to shoplift. Very strong urge, right? The very strong urge to shoplift. I think I'd be good at it too, right? I'm enchanted by the concept of pickpocketing. Good parnasa, Yonasan. It's a very good parnasa. Don't knock it. Give you a pickpocket, and I find it fascinating. Nobody ever catches pickpocket. In France, in France. They said they have like these professional pickpockets. So a guy will go up. He sees a couple of tourists, and he goes up to somebody and says, by the way, just be careful because there are a lot of pickpockets around here. So what's the first thing you do when you hear that? What's the first thing you do if you hear they're pickpocket? First thing you do is like this. Good. His partner is watching. And the next thing you know, his partner, because the guy either goes like this or he goes like this, his partner is watching, and next thing you know, he nips the wallet. It's good. It's good. We'll talk afterwards about a partnership. Yeah, wait. I know you're trying to pretend to look innocent. I can tell. You're the guy. You're the guy. Yeah, it's me and you, Jonathan. It's me and you. We'll be in it together. Right? I hear the prisons in Israel are good. Don't worry about it. They give you three meals a day. Yeah, it would be good, right? It'd be good. Okay, now take a look at the next one. I just want to show you also something Rav Victor Miller points out. Vayasu kena chartumim. The chartumim are, Paro has advisors and he has chartumim. The chartumim are very high level sorcerers that he has. And it's very interesting because the root of the word chartumim is charet. Charat, chartumim. Charet means to carve, to engrave, right? And Rav Hirsch says that the chartumim, the word charet, comes from engraving. Well, what did the Egyptians do? Right? They had like the hieroglyphics, right? These were the sophisticated people who were involved. The hieroglyphics. There's always a picture of a guy looking like this, the Egyptian, and they read all sorts of things, the hieroglyphics. He says the chartumim is an indication of the Egyptian hieroglyphics. Okay, one last point in Parsha. Go to Perik Tes Pasuk Tes Zayin. And on page 336, then we're going to go to Parshas Bo. I think that's the end of, yeah. Perik Tes Pasuk Tes Zayin. So it says like this. Where is it? One second, I lost it. You can't see Dave. You remember Curly from the Three Stooges?
Yes.
And most of these guys probably never saw. You guys ever saw the Three Stooges? Do you remember Curly? Getting frustrated. You just see him hitting a frog. Tes Zayin. Yeah. 16. Wait, am I on the right? Where am I? Oh yeah, here we go. Ve'ulam ba'avur zos hemaraticha. I've kept you here. Ba'avur haroscha es kochi, to show you my strength. Ulaman saper shmi b'chol haaretz, and that my name may be my name should be publicized in the land, says Hashem. So, why do we drink the 4 cups on Pesach? There are 4 cups, right? There are 4 lashonos in the Torah of four terms of redemption, and it's all about publicizing the miracle, right? It's all about what we call pirsume nisa, publicizing the miracle. It's very interesting in this pasuk that it says uleman saper shmi b'chol haaretz, to publicize my miracle. If you take a look at the word kochi, you have a chaf. The next word, uleman, the first letter is a vav, and saper is a samach. Chaf, vav, samach spells what? Kos. It's the only time in the Torah that you find this sequence. Kos. Kos is a cup. 4 cups on Pesach. What are 4 cups on Pesach? In order to publicize Hashem's strength in the entire world.
It's not us getting drunk. That doesn't publicize.
It's not, yeah. I want to tell you something. I get on Pesach, for some reason, at the Pesach Seder, the wine hits me harder than it does on Purim. I don't know why, but the wine really kicks in on Pesach. And I don't know if it's because of the hour, I don't know, because of the mitzvah. I'm not sure. The Gemara says one of the Amoraim said he drank wine. Because the halacha says you should drink wine even if you don't feel well from the wine. You should try to drink the wine on Pesach. There was one of the Amoraim said he used to drink the wine on Pesach and he had such a headache that he wrapped his head in a tourniquet until Shavuos from the wine. In those days, the wine was really strong. The Gemara in Ksuvah says that at the house of mourners, they instituted 10 cups of wine that they drank at the house of mourners. Then they actually got it up to 14 cups of wine. But then at 14 cups of wine, people were getting drunk, so they cut it back to 10. Right. And they were talking about strong wine. So wine was a regular drink. I guess you get conditioned to alcohol, right? It takes more to get you drunk if you're a regular drinker. I'm assuming it takes a little bit more to make you drunk. Yeah.
What was the measure of a cup, considering the?
You have the machlokas of our poskim nowadays. The 4 cups is either 3.3 ounces or 4.42 according to Moshe 5.07 according to the Chazon Ish. Right? Most people go with the 4.4 at a minimum. Rav Moshe Feinstein. I actually started going with even a smaller cup because I found that I was just after 2 cups of wine at the Seder, I was just blitzed. And so I started going with a smaller shear of wine. So some people switch to grape juice in the middle. I wanted to do the 4 cups of wine. That's the ideal way to do it. So I use a smaller shear for the wine. I got 4 cups of wine, but I still found that that first cup really rings your bell. In any event, page 340. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe bo el paro. Now you're going to have to stay with us. I'm going to show you something amazing over here. I'm going to show you something amazing. We got to really stay with us. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe bo el paro. Ki ani chbarati es libo ve'es lev avodav. I want you to come to Paro, for I harden his heart, the heart of his servants. Laman shisi osasai ele b'kirbo, in order to put these further signs in their midst. Now, the first thing is that people ask, why does it say bo el paro? It should say lech el paro. Why bo el paro? Come to Paro. So several commentaries that say because the Kodesh Baruch Hu is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm going to be there with you. Come with me. You're not on your own. Come with me. Others say because bo is also happens to be gematria of 3, Beis and Aleph is 3, and there are 3 more plagues left over here. But when you look through over here, Moshe then says in Pasuk, now I'm skipping down for a second, we're going to come back, but skip down for a second in Pasuk Gimel. Vayovo Moshe el Aaron el Paro, vayomrei lav ko amar Hashem elokei ha'ivrim, ad basai me'anta l'onos v'panai shlachem ivi avduni, send out my people and they'll serve me. Ki ma'ina tola shaleach esami, hineni shemach mevi machar arba bigvulecha. If you refuse to send my people, I'm going to bring locust. You'll notice that Hashem, this is the one plague, Hashem never tells Moshe what the plague is going to be. The Torah doesn't report Hashem saying it to Moshe. In all the other plagues, he says, go tell Paro you're going to get blood, frogs, kinim, whatever it is. Here, at no point does Hashem say, it just says, go to Paro. Next thing you know, Moshe and Aaron go to Paro and say, there's going to be locust. But why doesn't it say it? It doesn't say it anywhere in the Torah. So, which is an interesting question. It doesn't say it. It doesn't say that Hashem said it to Moshe. So the Ben Ish Chai says, it's just remarkable. It's just remarkable. When, in Hebrew letters, there are certain letters that go together. They're the letters that are pronounced by the lift, bumaf, beis, mem, pei, boom. They're called beis, vav, bumaf. That's the Rashi Tevos. Some letters are interchangeable with the others. A beis and a pei are often interchangeable. By the way, if you ever speak to an Arab, Arabs don't have a, what do you call it? They don't have they don't, huh?
Bebsi.
They don't have a pay in their life. I can tell if it's an Arab cab driver. He'll start talking. Kaplan. Yeah, Dovid. I have a friend. I have one Arab who's a friend. He's like a guy that I know that I see once in a while, so Dovid Kaplan. Right? They can't say the pay. Right? They can't say the pay. So these are interchangeable letters. There are other letters which are the softer letters, like an aleph and an ayin. An aleph and an ayin are interchangeable. Look what this is, unbelievable. Mary, you're going to love this. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, look at the top line. Bo el Paro. Take the letters Beis and Aleph and put them into Paro. In other words, take out the pay and substitute it with a Beis, because the Beis and pay are the same lip letters. Take out the ayin and put in an Aleph. Okay? Now, what have you got? You've got a Beis, Aleph, Resh, and Hey. If you rearrange a Beis, Aleph, a Resh, and Hey, then you get Arbe. Then you get locust. It says, Bo el Paro. Put the bow into Paro. There's the Arbe. That's Hashem telling Moshe about the Makkah of Arbe. Right? Not bad, right? Not bad. It's not a pun. It's not a pun as much as a remez. It's what we call a remez. It's an allusion. It's not a pun. Not a pun or a bun. Right, because a beis and a pay it's a bun and a pun. Could be the same, right? The beis. So he says, Bo, take the word Bo, El Paro, put it into Paro. Take out the pay and the I, put in the beis out, then you get Arba. I wouldn't call it a pun, I'd call it cute. Yeah, I call it cute. But at the end of the day, it doesn't say, now, before we get to that, look at the next pasuk. Let's take it one pasuk at a time. And you're going to go to Paro and tell Paro that you've hardened his heart. Now this is part, imagine you're Paro. And this sounds like something almost out of Monty Python. Right? Moshe comes to Paro and says, by the way, Hashem wants you to send the Jewish people away, but you can't because he's hardened your heart. No, he hasn't. Yes, he has. No, he hasn't hardened my heart. Okay, send away the people. No, I don't want to. See, here's hardened your heart. No, he hasn't hardened my heart. Paro, any way you go over here, you lose. He hasn't hardened my heart. I'm not sending the people. No, he's hardened your heart. He's hardened your heart. and Moshe Rabbeinu has a joke. That's why it says later on, Lamani Salalti, how Hashem has mocked the Egyptians. Paro is being mocked over here. But listen carefully, Joe, because this is extremely important. Ulaman tesaper bozle bincho ven bincho. I want you to tell this over to your children and your grandchildren. How I've mocked the Egyptians and I put my signs in them. V'yadatem ki ani Hashem. So there are 2 points in this pasuk that need clarification. Number one is that he says, I want you to tell your children and your grandchildren. So the Meforshim say, what that means is, tell your children in a way that they'll tell it over to their children. It means if you tell your children and your son tells his son, so everybody's going to get told. Why is it bincha uven bincha? So first of all, in most of the time in the world, that's the way it works. A grandfather generally tells it over to his grandchildren. My grandson today just had, he turned 3. He had his chalakah. And they cut his hair, So he goes from, and today he's already wearing tzitzis. They took him to the cheder where he licks off the honey off the letters. They do the whole thing and bring him in with the talis. The kid, of course, like most kids this age, didn't cooperate until it came time to giving out the candy to the other kids, right? But this is already, I'm there, my son is there, my grandson is there, so it's being handed on to the next generation. Now, what do you need me for? My son is there to hand it on to his son. Says the Gemara, says the Mefarshim, say it over to your sons. Saying over doesn't just mean saying over. It doesn't mean whispering, telling you, teaching, talking to your son. It means l'saper, it means to communicate the entire religion to your children in a way that they'll want to communicate it to their children. That means parents have to communicate it in a way that, there's a famous story. You probably heard the story at some point, but it's such a telling story. Rav Moshe Feinstein was once asked about two families in New York. In the old days in America, in the 40s, 50s, 40s, 30s, if you didn't report for work on Saturday, you got fired. And you had to go find a new job on Monday. Nowadays, the best thing that can happen to you is to get fired for not working on Saturday, because then you could sue their pants off and retire, right? And open up your own company and fire people, right? Yeah. Nowadays, the best thing that can happen to you is get some sort of religious. What do you call it in America? You can retire. Somebody make my day. Fire me, will you? So Rav Moshe Feinstein was once asked. There were two men in New York, both of whom would not compromise. They would not work on Saturdays. They would not work on Shabbos. And they kept getting fired, and it was not easy during this. My grandfather, my Zaidi, was a cab driver. My Zaidi was unemployed for a couple of years during the Depression. They were eating. My mother told me there was this restaurant. They used to go into a soup kitchen type of thing. But he wouldn't compromise Shabbos. Okay, all his grandchildren ended up Shomer Shabbos. He was the only one in his generation who all of his grandchildren were Shomer Shabbos. So there were two families in New York who the father refused to work on Shabbos. One of these men raised a family of serious Talmidei Chachamim and B'nai Torah, and the other one, his kids were marginal, were religious, but barely. So they asked Rav Moshe Feinstein, why did he end up with this family of serious B'nai Torah? So Rav Moshe Feinstein said, I knew the two men. I knew these two men. One man came home and he said he got fired. And every time he got fired, he came home and he said, you know what, it's difficult being Jewish. Look at this, what we got to go through. The other guy came home and he said, Baruch Hashem, we have the schus of giving up something for our Yiddishkeit. He says, that's what the kids absorb. That's what the kids absorb. The kids absorb from one that, this is rotten, but we got to do it. And the other, the man withstood a tremendous test. But he came home complaining about it. So the kid said, what do I need this for? What do I want to go through this for? Whereas the other one came home and said, this is our merit, this is our schuz. This is the schuz. There's another family that the husband kept getting fired. And then on Sukkot, kids walked into the sukkah for the first night of Sukkot, and they saw the sukkah was decorated with pink slips. All the pink slips that the husband got for being fired over the years, that was what they hung up in their sukkah. That was their sukkah decoration. That's a way that you communicate that you're giving it over in a way that your kids are you feel the, hey, this is something. So if the home has to be a Torah home, has to be a home where kids enjoy Torah. It's not all fun. And when you're on an airplane and they can't eat the meal because it's treif, it's not fun. It's not all fun. And if the lights blow out in the house on Shabbos, or you're gonna be in the dark, it's not fun. Okay, it's not always fun, but it has to be that the family is upbeat. You're communicating the Yiddishkeit is upbeat. We have the greatest treasure in the world is to be Torah Jews. The greatest treasure, the Gemara says, Shabbos is a gift. The Gemara says it, not me. Shabbos. The Gemara says, Yaakov Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu, tell Yisrael, I'm giving them a gift called Shabbos. It's a gift. Shabbos is a gift. Is it easy on Shabbos? Sometimes you're stuck in a bathroom or whatever. Okay, it happens. But so you got to, number one, tell it over to your children and your grandchildren. Well, what if I don't see my grandchildren? But tell it over, you communicate it and transmit it in a way that they'll want to transmit it, number one. Number two, at the end of the pasuk, it then says, this is a little tricky. It says, V'yadatem ki ani Hashem, and you will know that I am Hashem. In the plural. Why does it say V'yadatem, you will know? What should it say? If it's keeping with the context of the pasuk, what should it say? Tell it over to your children and your grandchildren that they will know. So why is it that you will know, plural? The answer is that when you tell it over to others, that's what reinforces it yourself. Sometimes when you're learning with somebody, you're teaching somebody else the Gemara, that's the best way for you to learn the Gemara. There's a statement in the Gemara that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, I learned a lot from my rabbis. I learned even more from my colleagues and from my talmidim, my students, most of all. Because when a Rebbe has to say it over, first of all, you have to get it clear in your own mind. You have to clarify it. And if you don't, your talmidim are going to catch you out. Your talmidim catch you out if you don't know what you're talking. I know from bitter personal experience, right? You start giving a shear, and all of a sudden somebody asks you a question. Ooh. Sometimes I go to sleep at night. I'm learning the Gemara, and I'm stuck on a piece of Gemara, and I know not only that one of the guys in Shir is going to ask me the question, I know exactly who it's going to be. I know who's going to ask me this question, and as soon as I get to Shir, it's happened to me countless times over the years. I start learning the Gemara, and one of exactly the guy I was picturing, the devil incarnate, his hand goes up, and I know what he's going to ask me before he says it. You know what else has happened over the years? He asks me the question, and I don't know the answer. And by the time he finishes asking the question, all of a sudden I have the answer. And I thought about it and did not get the answer. And now all of a sudden, as he finishes asking the question, now I've suddenly got the answer. You know where that came from? Ruach HaKodesh? No. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. No. Not Ruach. It's called Siyata D'Shmaya. That's clear Siyata D'Shmaya. I worked on it. I tried. I don't know. And I'm about to be embarrassed in public. And I'm about to get violent with this guy. Right? And all of a sudden, click, the light goes on. And it has nothing to do with myself. It's clear Siyata D'Shmaya says, okay, I'll have mercy on you this time. I'll have some mercy on you. And it's happened time after time. I know who's going to ask the question, and as soon as that hand goes up, it's like, there he is to ruin my day, right? And you're hoping maybe he'll overlook it, give me one more day to work on. No, he's right there. He's right there. He himself. That's when you tell it over, number one. Number two, v'yadatem means make sure you know it before you tell it over to your kids. Right? Yadatem. A, by telling it over, you'll know it better. B, make sure you know it when you tell it over. Right? That's yadatem. And that's the benefit of saying it over. Okay, we'll continue with this tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem.